Hello YouTube. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Uh, I'm out in nature, just out in the middle of nowhere, nothing around me at all. Just needed to get disconnected from everything for just an afternoon, and thought I would come out and do some hammock camping. So I want to go over my setup, share some of my ideas with you guys, which you may or may not find helpful. Um, just go over my setup real quick, and then I want to show you how I'm going to set up my hammock. Alright, so again, just going to go over my equipment that I'm going to be using for the setup. Kind of tell you why I use these specific things or why I don't use other things. But I'm going to start at the top. So for light, I'm going to be using just a regular kerosene lantern. In the middle, I've got my long stem lighter, and I've got lamp oil that I'm going to be using instead of kerosene. I prefer using lamp oil over kerosene because it doesn't smoke nearly as much as the kerosene does. Next, for my underlining, or for the bottom of the hammock, I'm using just an old military wool blanket. I have nothing against the pads or anything else that you can buy online. I just prefer to use the military wool blankets because with some of the pads, when you lay on them, you lose a lot of your R value. But with the older military blankets, they're made out of wool. So what I do is I double it up. I put it on the bottom of my hammock, and it keeps most of its R value. Not only that, but the cool thing about wool is if it does get wet, it still will help maintain a lot of heat. Not very much heat is lost through the fabric. So that's a great advantage of using wool over other products. Next, just my old Coleman sleeping bag. This is a 3-season sleeping bag. Nothing fancy, nothing special, just a cheap sleeping bag. So for my cover, what I have here, it's an 8x10 medium duty tarp. It has the eyelets already in it. Basically what I'm going to be building is a shelter half with it. You'll understand more about how the setup's going to look as I'm showing you the setup itself. To keep the tarp from flapping around, I have 6 plastic tent stakes. To secure the tarp from side to side, I have chosen 2 7/8 inch or 22 millimeter bolt snaps, and I like these because they'll snap right onto the eyes or the eyelets on the tarp, and with the other end being secured, if I want to unsnap them or unclip them, all I have to do is just unclip to one side. You don't have to worry about the clips on either side. And to drive the stakes into the ground, I have a rubber mallet. So for the cordage I'm going to be using, this is a braided mason line, 164 foot spool. I'm not going to be using the whole spool. This is some really light gauge line, but it is super tough. It only costs about maybe $2 for a spool. I know it's super tough because I use it a lot in doing my landscaping. So if I have to tie like a bush or something like that, tie it back to where I can work around it, I use this, and I prefer to use it because it is so cheap. I don't feel bad if I have to waste any of it or throw it away, when I get done. We are in the prime of mosquito season still, so I love to use these off clip-ons. They're only good for about 12 hours before you have to go buy the refill, but they're extremely cheap. I just don't like spraying myself with bug repellent. Have to wear it for a very extended period of time. So since I'm going to be out here sleeping tonight, I don't want to just lay in bug spray all night. The cool thing about these is they're just a clip-on, so you can clip them on pretty much anywhere. You don't have to worry about where they're at. I usually clip it on underneath me. The vapors that it does give off, I don't know if it could hurt you if you sit and were to breathe them in. I'm sure they do rise some. Well, I would say it does, because I can sleep pretty much all night with one of these things on the ground, sleeping slightly above it, and I'm pretty much mosquito free the entire night. So the very next thing is my LED flashlight. Going to be getting dark out here. Yes, I do have the kerosene lamp, but if I have to go to the bathroom or something like that, I don't want to take the time to unclip my lantern. I have my flashlight as a backup. And last but not least, my hammock, which again, I'm going to be showing you guys how I put up my hammock. And if you see my other video, you can also see my review on it. Okay, so next, I've already got my spot chosen, but I'll go over why and how I choose these spots and things to look out for. Okay, so when choosing your spot, you usually want a couple trees that are, between 12 to 15 foot from one another. I already stepped this out. My strides are about 3.5 feet each. So again, I just did a rough step. These are the perfect width from each other. But even when you think you've got the right trees, the very next thing that you need to do is look up, which is super important. So what you're looking for is any branches that might be broken, that have fallen, or anything like that. These are called widow makers, and they're called widow makers for a reason. They can come down and kill you. So always be sure to look up before you do any kind of camping underneath any kind of tree. And it doesn't matter if it's a hammock or a tent or anything. If you're going to be out camping, always look up, just to keep yourself protected. All right. The next thing, since we're doing hammock camping, I usually don't worry about the ground too much. But as you can see, there's a little bit of foliage that come up on the ground. Nothing that's going to be tall enough to impede our hammock camping. It's just nice when you get out of the hammock and you don't have to try to, look around. And be careful what you're stepping in. You don't want to get into a bunch of briars or something like that. So with that being said, this is for me the most ideal spot that I could find. Now I want to go ahead and start by getting the hammock and the tarp and everything else set up. All right, stay tuned. So the first thing that you want to set up, or at least in my opinion, is set the hammock up first, because you're going to base everything from your tarp, rainfly, mosquito net, whatever it is, off of how you have your hammock laid. So that's what we're going to do first. We're just going to get the hammock set up, and then we will continue through the rest of the stuff till it's all complete. So the order it's going to go in is hammock first. Next, we're going to set up the tarp or rainfly. Then we're just going to add our bedding. So those are the steps. Alright, so I've got the first side tied up. I'm going to have to get through this pretty quick. It's already starting to sprinkle and I'm running out of daylight. But to tie it on, basically what I did, so I have the tree straps, which you probably remember from my other video. I did, however, change the cordage that came with it. The reason being, you can listen to when you watch my unboxing and review of the hammock. So the tree strap, as you can see, where most of the weight is going to be held, it's going to wrap around the tree, and just to give some extra security, I looped it around again. Again, that second portion, that's not where a lot of the weight's going to be. To tie it off, I used a double overhand knot and secured it with a box knot. Alright, so got the hammock set up, the Rainfly on and everything. The lantern hung. Sorry I wasn't able to get all of it on video. I ran out of a lot of daylight when I was trying to put it up, so ran out of it quick. But when we get a little bit of light, I'll go through and I'll show you how I got it set up. Alright, so it's been raining on and off for about 20 minutes now, and the tarp is doing more than an adequate job of keeping the water out, diverting it all to either side of me, so staying completely dry under the tarp. No complaints whatsoever. The stakes are holding into the ground perfectly still. We had some high winds come through, but no big issue. You just want to make sure that when you put your stakes in, that you drive them completely in the ground, and you shouldn't have any issues. So I'm going to show you guys something really quick. This is just a cheap $1 or $2 loofah. They have a lot of different snake skins that you can buy online for your tarps or whatever you might be using, but these, if you do them right, will work just as well as any snake skin that you can buy online. And to do this, basically all you need to do is find the string in the middle of the loofah or the sponge or whatever you want to call these things, and then you just simply cut the string without cutting the rest of the material. So we're going to go ahead and do that really quick. Okay. Again, this comes off, and the string itself will come out. And then what you have, adjust this to where you can see it a little bit better, is a long tube of netting. And I'll show you in a little bit how I use this. So there you are. Just a real cheap, easy snake skin for your tarps or your hammock or whatever else you might need it for. Alright, here's just a real quick overview of everything once it's all set up. As you can see, I've got my tarp, using it as the Rainfly, attached to my stakes that I've driven in the ground. Some leftover wood from my campfire. There is a mosquito repellent, which worked great. The loofah, or snake skin, that I'll be using for my tarp. My lantern. And last but not least, my hammock, my pillow, and sleeping bag in there. And again, we got quite a little bit of rain on and off. And I stayed completely dry in this setup, so no issues at all. Just a perfect little setup. I will show you. So, as mentioned, I will show you the front side is a little shorter than the back side. As you can see, the back side goes down almost all the way to the ground, and that's done on purpose. So that way I can still see out of the front of the tent. It's still going to provide protection from the rain. But it's still a little warm out right now too. So having the front side a little shorter allows for a little bit more circulation. So you're probably wondering about the orange marks. I really don't have any idea. The orange marks on the trees. I am out at some conservation land. They might be getting ready to clean up the timber stand a little bit, but there's several marks on some of the trees all around here. So again, not quite sure what's going on there. But anyway, this is just the overview of my setup. Real cheap and easy setup. And it was real comfortable. Really enjoyed it. Okay, for the snake skin or loofah or whatever you want to call it, I've already pulled the stakes for the tarp. So I'm just going to show you real quick how to use it to store your tarp. Alright, and there you go. Next, all I need to do is just undo it, undo the cordage on it, and I'm just going to poke the cordage into the ends. The clips are still on. Set it on a nice flat spot, and then you roll it up. So there you have it.